All right, tonight's lesson will be on the fourth deadly sin, sloth. And the opposite of sloth is diligence. So if you had to define the word sloth, how would you define it? And it's not the two-toed creature.
Slow moving, dragging everything.
Okay. Slow moving, dragging. Okay. Kind of like in slow motion.
Not getting stuff done as they should be, I guess.
Okay. Not really accomplishing much. Okay. How about you, Clarissa? What do you think? Sloth.
I've heard of the word, but anytime I hear sloth, I think of the cute animal.
The cute animal. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me read you a series of phrases about what sloth is. Sloth is hitting the snooze button repeatedly, drinking straight from the milk jug, leaving dirty clothes on the floor, a love affair with the remote control, never returning calls or writing thank you notes, leaving only 2 sheets on the toilet paper roll, falling asleep every night to late night TV, living for sports, tenured professors coasting intellectually. Tenured professor is somebody that's reached the point where they're safe, they're not going to get fired, we can't get demoted, and so sometimes they just coast. They don't continue putting out effort. Troubled marriage is passing up a marriage retreat. Knowing TV characters better than your own family members. Preaching other people's sermons. Wandering the mall, killing time, mastering small talk. Amusing ourselves to no end. That could be spending too much time on video games or social media or whatever, just amusing yourself. Letting discipline slide, indifference, wanting to live somewhere else all the time, staying busy to avoid serious thought, preoccupation with misery, boredom in daily chores, not caring, inability to sustain interest in anything challenging, feeling overwhelmed and therefore doing nothing, sloppy, undisciplined thinking, resignation from responsibility for others, letting others make my choices, going with the flow, surrendering hope, lethargy, apathy, spiritual amnesia, a deadly sin.
I like the spiritual amnesia.
Spiritual amnesia. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Did any of those phrases step on your toes? Because some definitely step on mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someday.
Sloth is an easy thing to fall into. It's easier than dealing with things. We get apathetic about things. It's kind of like going through the motions, but never getting serious about something.
Mm-hmm.
And when it becomes deadly is when we go through the motions with God and don't get serious about God. We don't focus on him. We don't pray enough. We don't read the Bible enough. We don't fellowship with other Christians enough. We just neglect all the disciplines that draw us to God. And by doing that, we wound him. He's like a good father. Maybe we don't know what a good father is, but he's like a good father with his arms open, sitting in his easy chair, saying, come on, come sit in my lap. Let's talk. Let's share some time. Let's get to know one another, all that stuff. And we're like, no, I'm going to go over here in this corner and do this thing. So sloth can be a dangerous thing. If we want the actual definition of sloth, sloth is defined as spiritual or emotional apathy. neglecting what God has spoken and being physically and emotionally inactive. Sloth can also indicate a wasting due to lack of use concerning a person, place, thing, or skill, or intangible idea that would require maintenance, refinement, or support to continue to exist. So our relationship with God needs continued connection to continue to exist. So that's one piece that falls in here. And we'll let Lisa get on here. Hi, Lisa. Glad you can make it. We're just starting the lesson.
Hi, Lisa. You're muted.
You're muted.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry about that. Debbie's birthday is tomorrow and we're going to New York to the Titanic exhibit.
Aha.
Oh, nice.
I was preparing my back.
Okay. Well, that's good. So we're just starting to talk about sloth, and I just read the two definitions. I'll read one of them again. Sloth is defined as spiritual or emotional apathy, neglecting what God has spoken, and being physically and emotionally inactive. And I read a whole list of things that sloth is, and we all said, ouch, because at some point, something in there stepped on our toes. So when do you think sloth began? Most of our deadly sins we could trace all the way back to Adam and Eve's time. Do you think we can trace this one back there too? What do you think?
Well, when you say Adam and Eve, like they neglected what God told them to, so
Okay.
that's a type of neglect too. So
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. They were in the same cycle that we're in. Think about it. What is our day like? We get up. We have to eat something. We have to put on clean clothes. We have to maybe take a shower. We have to do all these things, and we do them over and over again every day, one day after another. You know, that what happens in the middle of the day might change a little bit, whether it's a weekday and we're going to work or teaching our kids at the home or whatever it is. But it's a routine. It's a continual pattern of the same thing over and over again. And we talked last week about gluttony being that we are an open throat, a needy being that continues to need to be filled with things to survive. Well, our lives are made up of a cycle of being empty and full, you know, morning and evening and night, and a continual pattern. And Adam and Eve were in this same pattern too. And they wanted to escape that routine. And in some ways, sloth wants to escape the routine of life and to ignore the necessities of what we're asked to do in our routine. And Adam and Eve wanted to escape the routine. They wanted to make their own arrangements. They wanted to no longer be the independent or the dependent creatures that demanded God's help to survive. They wanted to be independent. And so they made a choice. They made the choice to eat, and yet they found themselves still empty. We're always prone to destroying ourselves by trying to not be dependent on God, to somehow leave the routine that he gives us in life. And then we start to fill the God-shaped hole with other things. And we grow tired and cynical and weary and eventually numb. And that is sloth. We get to the point of numb and nothing much matters anymore. We become hardened.
That almost sounds like a depression.
It does, doesn't it?
It really does. It sounds like a depression, like you're numb and you just don't care.
Yeah. It is a form of depression, isn't it?
Yeah.
It definitely
I
is.
would-
But it can take other forms too. In America, we often call it a midlife crisis. Tired of the routine, tired of what we have, and go looking for other things in a risky way, right?
Go buy a flashy car.
That's right. So, do you ever feel heavy and weighted down and things are just not great? Maybe just a tiny bit of depression? And what do you turn to then?
Always to Jesus and the Bible, of course, and prayer.
Is that the first place though we turn, or do we sometimes turn elsewhere?
Oh, we
Elsewhere.
definitely turn elsewhere.
And
It's so
what
easy.
do we often turn to in that elsewhere?
TV, reading a book, I don't know, stuff that's
Yeah, that's
outside
it.
of
What was that?
Video games.
Video games. Yep, yep.
I like to shop when I'm sad.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, one of the phrases we read was let's see, what was it? Amusing ourselves to no end. That's video games, right?
Yes.
But we can also turn to food or things that would fall under the category of gluttony, right? So gluttony is a close relative of sloth. They often get together. So there's the saying that Isaac Watts has in a book that he wrote. He's a long time ago. It says, "For Satan finds some mischief still for idle hands to do."
Yep.
Yep. And so another way to look at sloth is a disinclination or a lack of an inclination to action or labor. You know, you got spiritual apathy, you got inactivity, but not inclined to get moving or doing things is also a piece of this. So lazy or apathy or slacker or idleness, sluggishness, those are all a piece of this sloth thing. So it has both physical and spiritual applications to it. So let's go ahead and look at the words the Bible uses. Those definitions are primarily from places like the Merriam-Webster dictionary and things like that. They're more secular definitions. Let's see how the biblical definitions stand up to those same ones. So in Greek, there are three words. Argos, A-R-G-O-S, is the first one. It means inactive, unemployed, lazy, useless, barren, idle, or slow. So
That's
the idea, inactive. What were you going to say?
that's how I feel some days.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. And I think we
We
go
all have
through
our
periods
those
in our
days.
life. I think we go through periods in our life that happens. I know losing my parents both within a few months brought up stuff and made me think a lot more about life and how life is such so meaningless in some ways, like Solomon says, that all the Ecclesiastes, that we just get up and do the same thing over and over again, and what's the purpose? Why are we doing all of that? And things like that, and trying to find settle on new purpose and new direction. Also finding myself near the end of my career, having reached the highest grade level that I'm likely to get, and having accomplished the things that I set out to do. Now, what's the new goal? What's the new thing? So purpose in life. So inactivity, unemployed, useless, barren, idle, and slow. Argos. The second one is ekneros. Okneros. And it
Or was
means
that okay?
Okneros. It means shrinking, timid, idle, lazy, troublesome, lagging behind, lazy. So the idea of shrinking away from something, lagging behind, not out there moving, somehow staying behind, staying in one place. And the third Greek word is nothros, Nothros. It means sluggish, literally lazy, figuratively stupid. Who thought stupid, right? Dull or slothful. And then there are a couple of Hebrew words. First one is Remiyah, and I'm not even sure how to spell it or pronounce it. Remewa, I don't know. It means laxness, slackness, idle, lazy, negligent. That's what it means. It's a feminine noun that indicates laziness, negligence, or sloth. It refers to a loose character in the sense of slackness, laziness, and lack of diligence or attention. So really a lazy person. The next Hebrew word is Rapha, Raphah. It comes from the root word sink, and is usually thought of as in the idea of to relax. A verb meaning to become slack or to relax, to cease, to desist, to become discouraged. There's the idea of depression. To become disheartened, to become weak, to become feeble, to let drop, to discourage, to leave alone, to let go, to forsake, to abandon, to be lazy. So it's good for us to relax, but not in this way. Next Hebrew word is raza, or hazah, Hazah, verb meaning to sleep or to dream, but it's used in a derisive way of being useless, in the sense of a lazy person that loves to slumber and lounge about, merely dreaming about God rather than going out and doing God's work. So a sleepiness. The next Hebrew word is asel, meaning sluggish or lazy. And it's in the Bible, it's used in cases where somebody didn't do their job on time. They won't work. They create imaginary excuses. Their wealth and health will deteriorate, and they'll consider themselves wise. Are you frozen, Lisa? Yes, Lisa's frozen. All right, so let's look at some of the verses then that use some of these words. Lisa froze. She's got to change her system, I think. She'll be back.
She got a lot come back.
She jumped out because she froze. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go to Proverbs 6. We're going to look at verses 6 to 11.
You said Proverbs 6?
Proverbs 6, 6 to 11. And somebody
I
else,
could do that one.
Okay, and we're also going to go to Proverbs 10:4. We're going to be in Proverbs for a little bit here. And then Proverbs 12:24 and 27. Those are the first three sets of Proverbs.
So it's Proverbs 6,
6 to 11.
6 to 11. Okay. Do you want me to start?
Sure. She might have run out of power too.
Or she might be going on her phone to do the Bible study, maybe.
Yeah, she'll be back. I think she ran out of power probably. She's coming.
Probably. Oh, she's coming.
Ran out of power?
It's like Grand Central Station in my house right now.
Yeah. You froze anyway.
Yes. I'm
All
back.
right. We're turning to Proverbs 6, 6 to 11, and Clarissa has that one. So go ahead, Clarissa, read that one.
Okay. Go to the ant, O sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. How long will you lie there, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. And poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man.
All right. I'm going to read it to you from the Message. It puts it in a very easy to understand way. You lazy fool, look at an ant. Watch it closely. Let it teach you a thing or two. Nobody has to tell it what to do. All summer it stores up food. At harvest, it stockpiles provisions. So how long are you going to laze around doing nothing? How long before you get out of bed? A nap here, a nap there, a day off here, a day off there. Sit back, take it easy. Do you know what comes next? Just this. You can look forward to a dirt poor life, poverty, your permanent house guest. Isn't it one of the American ways to think that eventually, if all things go well, we'll get to the point where we don't have to work so hard? Isn't that what a lot of Americans strive for?
Can I
Yeah.
have it now?
Can we have it now?
Right now.
Right now. All right. Proverbs 10:4 is the next one. And then after that, Proverbs 12:24 and 27.
Okay, I can read it. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth.
Okay, nice short one. Short and to the point. Proverbs 12:24 to 20 and 27, not the whole thing, just those two verses.
Verses 24 and 27.
Mm-hmm.
Diligent hands will rule, but laziness ends in forced labor. The lazy do not roast any game, but the diligent feed on the riches of the hunt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll go out and hunt the game, but they're too lazy to roast it so they can eat it. What a picture, huh? All right, Proverbs 13:4 and 15:9.
Where there are no oxen, the manger is empty. But from the strength of an ox come abundant harvest.
Is that Proverbs 15:9?
No,
Or,
that
sorry,
was
15:19. Sorry,
oh,
I probably gave you the wrong one. 15:19. It didn't sound
15:9.
right. And then Proverbs 20, verse 4. is the next one.
The way of the sluggard is blocked with thorns, but the path of the upright is a highway.
Okay, so sluggards, it's just so hard to make any progress at all. But people that are upright and following God, it's an open path. Proverbs 20, verse 4.
Sluggards do not plow in season, so at harvest time they look but find nothing.
All right. The message says a farmer too lazy to plant in the spring has nothing to harvest in the fall. All right. There's more proverbs. You want more proverbs or you want to move on? What do you think?
Guess we can do one more then.
One more Proverbs. Okay. Proverbs 26, 13 through 16.
A sluggard says there's a lion in the road, a fierce lion roaming the streets. As a door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. A sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He is too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. A sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 people who answer discreetly.
Yeah. Think about those pictures. He goes to the table to start to eat. He picks up something with his hand, but he's too lazy to bring it back to his mouth to eat it.
That's pretty lazy.
That's pretty lazy. And that last one part of that, though, a sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who answer discreetly. That's another characteristic of the sluggard. They're very wise in their own eyes. All right, Ecclesiastes 10:18 says, if a man is lazy, the rafters sag. If his hands are idle, the house leaks. Another picture. These are all the physical aspects of being a sluggard. But the Bible also talks about spiritual aspects of being lazy. So we're going to go to several different verses for those. So you ready to fly through the Old Testament a little bit? We're going to Ezekiel 16:49. And the next one will be Zephaniah 1:12 to 13.
I have the Ezekiel one. What is the chapter and verse?
16:49.
1649. Behold, this was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excess of food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy.
Okay. The version I have, the sin of your sister Sodom was this: she lived with her daughters in the lap of luxury, proud, gluttonous, and lazy. And they ignored the oppressed and the poor. So the idea that if you're so caught up in being a slothful person, a lazy sluggard, whatever you want to call it, that you ignore others' plights. It's all about you because all you're doing is looking at yourself. All right, Zephaniah 1:12 to 13.
At that time, I will search Jerusalem with lamps and punish those who are complacent, who are like wine left on its dregs, who think the Lord will do nothing, either good or bad. Their wealth will be plundered, their houses demolished. Though they build houses, they will not live in them. Though they plant the vineyards, they will not drink the wine.
Okay, another version says, on Judgment Day, I'll search through every closet and alley in Jerusalem. I'll find and punish those who are sitting it out, fat and lazy, amusing themselves and taking it easy, who think God doesn't do anything, good or bad. He isn't involved, so neither are we. But just wait. They'll lose everything they have, money and house and land. They'll build a house and never move in. They'll plant vineyards and never taste the wine.
What was that verse, Melanie? Zephaniah, what was it?
1:12 to 13. And the version I just read you, that's the message. It sometimes puts it in very modern day terms
Mhm.
and puts it in your face, really. I like the phrase there, God doesn't do anything good or bad. He isn't involved, so neither are we. Thinking, God's not going to care. All right, we're going to move to the New Testament, Matthew 25, 14 to 30. This is one of the parables that Jesus told. And while somebody's doing that one, we're also going to go to Hebrews 6, 10 to 12. Those are the last two in this section. So go ahead and find it. Whoever wants to read Matthew, go ahead. 25, 14 to 30.
I'll do the Hebrews one.
All right, let's get the Matthew one first.
14 to what was it?
14 to 30 of chapter 25.
Okay. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold bought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with the 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathered where you have not scattered seeds. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed? Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Okay. Not a pretty picture,
Mhm.
but he's not just talking about monetary things that God gives us. You can read this in any way that you want in terms of things God gives you, because he gives you time and talent and treasures. So if you remember the 3 T's, time, talent, and treasures, he expects us to use those for the master's business, so to speak. And when we get lazy with them, not using them for kingdom business, it says that we are worthless and that he wants to throw us out where there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That's a picture of hell. We don't want that.
Mhm.
But if we're faithful to few things, he'll give us more. So we don't want to be that lazy servant. All right, Hebrews 6, 10 to 12.
For God is not just so as to overlook your work and the love that you have shown for his name in serving the saints, as you still do. How far am I going?
Verse 12.
And we desire each one of you to show the same earnestness, to have the full assurance of hope until the end, so that you may not be sluggish, but imitators of those who through faith and patience inherit the promises.
All right. Don't forget the work that he's given you, taking care of others, showing them God's love, all of that. Be diligent to the end. We don't want you to become lazy. We want you to imitate those that through faith and patience inherit what's promised. So laziness, spiritual laziness, we're talking about here. We can end up going through the motions and never seriously attending to God, never focusing on God, never turning ourselves over to God. This ultimately causes a person to sink into functional godlessness. When we're in that state, God does not seem very real to us. So we stop praying, and the less we pray, the less real God becomes. It's a dangerous path. How do you think you get out of this path?
I think first you would have to repent, no?
Yeah. It is a sin. Yeah. What else?
Prayer.
Yeah. What else? Keep going.
You're going to have to pray. You're going to have to read. You're going to have to spend time with God and really become aware of what you're doing or rather not doing and changes.
Make some changes. Okay. Basically, sluggards have stopped engaging in the world or engaging in things of God, whichever way you're going to look at it. Stop caring about those around us. Stop caring about spending time with God. Life is supposed to be a life of being interested in God and in things that God has given us to do. God has given us curiosity like a child. And when we stop using that, we are robbed of our capacity to be interested in anything. And that's the danger of sloth. The sin of sloth robs you of the capacity to be interested in other people, in things, in God himself. That's the dangerous place. So when we get bored of life and we start shirking responsibilities and are careless, and maybe we hate the life that we've been given and we're not content, we resent the demands people put on us, we want to just be left alone in our apathy. What is the answer for getting out of that?
Doing the opposite of what you're doing.
Okay, doing the opposite of what you're doing. Okay. Well, let me read Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 2 to 11 to you. This was what Solomon came to see. See if we can gain any insight here. He says, smoke, nothing but smoke. That's what the questioner says. There's nothing to anything. I'm reading the Message version. Might not sound like yours. It's all smoke. What's there to show for a lifetime of work? A lifetime of working your fingers to the bone. One generation goes its way, the next one arrives, but nothing changes. It's business as usual for old planet Earth. Sun comes up, sun goes down, then does it again and again. Same old round. The wind blows south, the wind blows north. Around and around and around it blows, blowing this way, then that. The whirling, erratic wind. All the rivers flow into the sea, but the sea never fills up. Rivers keep flowing to the same old place, and then start all over again and do it again. Everything's boring, utterly boring. No one can find any meaning in it. Boring to the eye, boring to the ear. What was will be again. What happened will happen again. There's nothing new on this earth. Year after year, it's the same old thing. Does someone call out, hey, this is new. Don't get excited. It's the same old story. Nobody remembers what happened yesterday and the things that will happen tomorrow. Nobody will remember them either. Don't count on being remembered. That's Solomon. He's the wisest man that ever lived. Does that sound like getting caught in the trap of sloth? Yeah. But God has chosen to meet us in that very place, the place that he gave us to give us life, to be present with us and to complete us. And that is in the daily routines. It's those things that we get bored of that God gave us to keep interested in and keep meaning in our lives and to keep us from being slothful. Remember what God did to Adam and Eve when they left the garden? What did he tell them they had to do? What were the two curses? What did Adam get for a curse?
The ground wouldn't work for him. Like he had to work hard.
He had to work the ground to make food, to get food to survive, but it was going to be hard. Okay, what was the curse for Eve?
Child pains.
Childbearing, child pains. Yes. Okay. So both jobs, being a farmer or being a mother, are they full of routine?
Yes.
Yes, a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of routine. That's what God gave us. That is what he gave us as his way of keeping us active and interested in life. Life is made up of routines. Lamentations 3:22-23. I'll start at verse 21, but chapter 3 of Lamentations. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. We want hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. The Lord is good to those who hope in him, to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. Right in the middle of there, it says a phrase that we've heard in songs before. His mercies are new every morning. That's part of routine. Even in the Lord's Prayer, he tells us to pray for our daily bread. Part of our routine, our everyday routine. God's response to our falling into sloth is to remind us that we need to get back into the routine with life and with him. God doesn't get rid of our nefesh, our empty throat. He made us with the capacity to be repeatedly filled and repeatedly emptied, and he needs us to feel a dependence on him and to have that regular routine. God has chosen to meet us and to give us life and to be present with us and to complete us in daily routines. Even though we find daily routines boring, God's placed them in our lives with promises that his faithfulness is there all the time. His mercies are new every morning. We can hope in him. If we seek him, we find him. All of those things. It is in our routines that we get away from sloth. And it's the very routines that we have become bored with that we have let us fall into sloth in the first place. He wants us to go from numb to obedience. Is that making any sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So God has in mind for us that we should be, but also want one day at a time. He wants us to not feel numb, but to be obedient, to be devoted to freedom and creativity and energy. That's what his grace is about. He wants us to become responsible beings, people to whom he can entrust deep and worthy assignments, expecting us to make something. That parable that he told, expecting us to make something significant of our lives. We've been called into existence, expected, awaited, equipped, and assigned to specific tasks that each one of us are to do. He has something special for each one of us to do. Romans 12:9-21. God wants you to have a vibrant life of partnership with him. Love from the center of who you are. Don't fake it. This is Message version again. Run for dear life from evil. Hold on for dear life to good. Be good friends who love deeply. Practice playing second fiddle. Don't burn out. Keep yourselves fueled and aflame. In other words, don't allow yourselves to lose that connection with God. Be alert servants of the Master, capital M. Cheerfully expectant. Don't quit in hard times. Pray all the harder. Help needy Christians. Be inventive in hospitality. Bless your enemies. No cursing under your breath. Laugh with your happy friends when they're happy. Share tears with them when they're down. This is the same verse that Pastor read on Sunday, just a different version. Get along with each other. Don't be stuck up. Make friends with nobodies. Don't be the great somebody. Don't hit back. Discover beauty in everyone. If you've got it in you, get along with everybody. Don't insist on getting even. That's not for you to do. I'll do the judging, God says. I'll take care of it. And then our scriptures tell us that if we see our enemy hungry, go buy that person lunch. And if he is thirsty, get him a drink. Your generosity will surprise him with goodness. Don't let evil get the best of you. Get the best of evil by doing good. God wants us engaged in our world. What do you think? Engaged in your world? Are you engaged?
I hope so.
You hope so. Okay.
Try to be.
I think we all feel sometimes that we should be more engaged both with God and with our world. And that's a good place to be because
That's awesome.
we're realizing what God wants us to do.
Mhm.
And he's equipping us and leading us in that direction. Let's think about the church for a minute, though. Is sloth in churches?
Sure.
Yeah. What does it look
Yes.
like? What does it look like in a church?
Well, it's people who aren't using their talents, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
Just
If you-
doing the bare minimum, coming to church and then leaving, not really being a part
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of the church and trying to do more of what you're supposed to be doing.
Okay. So putting into practice what we're learning, right?
Yeah.
But what's happening in a lot of churches is that people are just coming and sitting and getting their weekly buzz, shall we say?
Mhm.
And they're always looking for a better buzz. So they're looking for an event where they're going to feel closer to God, get a bigger buzz. And they might church hop, they might concert hop, they might do a lot of things. Christian CPR, Christian products to resuscitate.
Like
The
Christian
market is
CPR.
full of them, right? CPR, Christian products to resuscitate. People are out there looking for that spiritual buzz. And we're looking for new ways to reach people, which isn't wrong, but if we're neglecting the spiritual routines of prayer, scripture reading, Sabbath rest, common worship, tithing, hospitality, deeds of mercy, using our gifts, if we're neglecting that, we're falling into sloth. We shouldn't be people moving from one thing to another looking for a spiritual high. We just need to dig in deep and let sink in what God's doing in us. We need to take time for serious thought and discussion of Bible truths, kind of like we're doing now. We need to be Christians made the old-fashioned way. One habit, one practice, one day at a time. Holiness doesn't just happen. We have to practice opening ourselves and allowing God to transform us and sanctify us. Sloth is going to not sit still for the routines or the deep searching that brings us closer to God. Sloth doesn't want to have anything to do with that. And I think sloth has come into a lot of churches. And people are looking for the next thing to get a buzz.
Mhm.
Instead of allowing God to do his work and taking the time in the spiritual disciplines to let God do his work. So things to think about. Have we fallen into sloth? If we have, ask God to forgive us and start practicing the routines and start finding contentment and joy in the routines of life. Our next one is pride. So next week is pride. And I'm going to end our recording there.